and then the reality of the hard work sets in,
Yeah.
and you get a little success and then you get lazy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I can speak for myself.
Well, and it feels too far. A year is a long time.
Yeah.
So in relation to our income goals as well, think about when in January, if we don't make any money, we can justify and say, well, I still have 11 months left. We have plenty of time. Right, like we've often talked about. When we get to June, if our goal is $100,000, we're at 30,000. Right, we're at 30% of our goal. Well, now we have two choices. We can either increase activity and make 70 in the next 6 months, which we only made 30 in the first 6, or what's option 2?
Decrease the goal.
Decrease the goal. We make sense of a lower goal. We make sense of, well, you know what? If I made 50,000, more than I made last year. I made 50. I'm still covering my bills. You know, if I made 50,000, life's not terrible, even though my goal was 100,000. So that's why I don't like the annual plan, because it's too far away. December still seems very far away, even though we know it's going to be here before we know it, because time in real estate just flies, because we're always looking 30, 60, 90 days ahead. So the annual plan here doesn't really work very well. And it's because it's too long, and oftentimes too, is our goal even tied into what's important to us? So thinking about this, right now, I just want you to think about, what is your income goal? Do we have an income goal for the year? Have we established a goal and set a goal for what we want to make this year? And how are we doing in relation to that right now as well? So rather than focusing on a 12-week year, or excuse me, a 12-month year, we're going to focus on a 12-week year. Now, what we know in real estate is that 20% of our income should come in the first quarter, 30% in the second quarter, 30% in the third, 20% in the fourth. So now that we know that, let's just use 100,000 for easy math. The only thing I need to focus on right now is, how do I make $20,000 in Q1? So that's all I cared about, is if my goal was $100,000 for this year, have I exceeded that or made at least $20,000 so far this year in the first 3 months? If not, I'm behind and I need to catch up. Because now we're moving into Q2 in a day or so. And now I need to make 30,000. So if I made 0 in Q1, right? Well, now I need 50 grand in 2 quarters. So I'm behind on my goal. Does that make sense? Yeah. So we need to be looking at this and knowing, what are my metrics? What is my income goal? And then really, why is my income goal even important to me to begin with? Because I think this is the most important thing. Like when we see goal setting, let's just go back to this. Has anybody been to a business planning before? They say to do your business planning in September, October, something like that, because what we do today shows up 60 to 90 days from now, which I'm a firm believer in. And when we do that, we create our business plan. And what happens to our business plan?
It's put in a drawer.
It's put in the drawer. When do we look at it again?
September.
September. Yeah, September, we do the business plan again. Right? It's because our metrics that we set. And that's right too. Have you ever seen the people that get up and be like, I'm gonna sell 1,000 houses? There's an agent one time, I'm gonna sell 1,000 houses this year. And everybody goes nuts. Everybody's like, and then they sold like 100, which is still good. Huge team, and they're out of business because they have $1 million in overhead. So they went bankrupt. That happens. Right? But people stand up and have these lofty goals without a plan for how are we going to achieve this lofty goal. Are we just saying it because it sounds good and we feel good in the moment? So everyone's gonna clap for us. Like, oh, you're gonna do it. No, you're not. Right? Like, we're probably not, because we don't have a plan in place. Happens all the time though. It's easy to set a lofty goal and walk out of a business planning thing feeling pumped up and motivated. But then to your point, Karen, then the work sets in. Then it's like, oh, I need to actually execute on this. And that's what we want to talk about today, is how we execute a plan. But thinking about, if we're compacting a year into 12 weeks. So now if my goal is 100,000, all I want to focus on in the first 12 weeks is I need to make $20,000. So now every single week is like a month. So if I have a bad week, it's like I had a bad month. It's really good. It's okay to have a bad day, right? But in this, if you have a bad week, it's like taking a full month, because we're compacting our goals into shorter periods of time. So we need to stay super vigilant on what we need to do. So when we think about this, what is our income goal? But then we have to figure out too, do we even believe our income goal is possible? Because this is a big one for a lot of people. If you don't even believe it's possible, will you achieve it? Probably not. All right, so if my goal is to make $1 million, and I've never made $1 million, and I said in a year, and I said, well, instead of saying, how could I do that? Well, I don't know how to do it because I haven't done it yet. So I don't need to ask how is a powerful question, but I don't need to ask myself how yet. I need to start asking myself, what if? What if it was possible to make $1 million in 1 year? What if? Right? And then I need to start thinking about now, what if it was possible? And now if it becomes possible, well, how might I go achieve that? Because I have to first believe that it's possible before I can start putting focus into how I can go achieve that. Things, ways I can go achieve that, I go find people that are making that money. If I want to make $10 million a year, I need to go find somebody that's making $10 million a year in real estate. Figure out what they're doing, what their systems look like, what their lead generation looks like, and go potentially model that behavior to do that. But now all of a sudden, if I believe it's possible, and how I do it, well, then it starts to become probable. Now it's like, okay, I can do this. And then once it becomes given, you just know that you'll never go without making money in real estate again. So like, give you a good example, Mary crushed her first quarter. Would you have closed and pending Q1?
Say that again?
So we just finished our first quarter. Mary had a goal of 20,000. Where are you at closed and pending?
I'm about 30.
Yeah, over 30,000. So crushed it. All right. Mary's up here now, where she just knows she's going to make money in real estate. Would you say that's a fair statement?
Mhm.
Where like in the past, maybe you didn't feel as certain about real estate?
Exactly, yeah,
Kind of like, where's the deal gonna come from?
yeah.
Well, see, that's something with the power of this goal setting we're gonna go through here, is now Mary's at a point in her career now where because she's doing the activity and knowing what to focus on, that she knows that, look, I'm just gonna make money. I know how to make money now. If I continue to do the activities that will continue to produce results, all I have to do is continue to show up, keep doing it, and the results will continue to come. But it all starts with mindset, because if we don't think it's possible, it's never gonna happen. There's 0% chance that you will be successful in anything you do if you don't think it's possible. Yeah, hope's not a strategy. We know that. Hopefully it works out. Well, no, we need to make sure it works out by doing the right activities every single day. So, questions that uncover your degree of ownership for your goal. So thinking about what is your income goal, but now we need to tie to why is that important to me? So what elements of my vision, call vision your goal, what elements are important to you? Because the bigger reason for why we want to earn the income is not because we want to make a certain income, but what that money does for us. What is that money going to do for us? So one, why is it important to me? And what we'll be able to do if we reach that goal that we can't do now. So if my goal is $100,000, what can I do with $100,000 that I can't currently do now? And why is that important to me? What will be different for me, for my family, for my friends, my peers, my clients, my communities when I reach that goal? So what does that look like? Like I'll give you an example for me. My year one goal was 50 grand. I was like, if I can make $50,000 way back in the day, I can at least get caught up on my bills if debt collectors were gone. That's all I want. Private debt collectors gone. And I want my water to work. I turned it on. It's all simple goal. It might be that market gas will shut up. And my electric got shut up occasionally. So yeah, I just wanted utilities. That's all I want. My utilities to function, right? Not get shut off and no debt collectors to fall. 50 grand. I exceeded 50 grand in my first year because I had a big enough why for why I wanted to do that. Who have you shared your vision with? Well, here's another one. Are you willing to commit to the actions needed to reach your goal? So is it just numbers on a paper or a goal that I'm writing down to feel good in the moment? Or am I really committed to making this goal happen and willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen? Huh? Who have I shared this with? Does anybody ever feel weird sharing their goal with people? If you don't, maybe your goal's not big enough. If you don't feel a little uncomfortable, maybe it's not big enough. Maybe it is. Maybe you just know in your heart that you're going to achieve no matter what it is. But who are you sharing it with? Are you sharing it with the right people? Big one. Have you ever looked at your goal or your vision since you wrote it down? This is what we talked about earlier. It's put in the drawer. Got it right. What actions do you have to take to make progress on your vision and reach your 12-week goal? What risks or barriers may get in the way of you reaching your vision? And then the big one is finding peer accountability, which we'll talk about here in a moment. So we think if we start having buy into our goal and we're looking at it every single day and we know exactly what our goal is and what to do, we think we're going to have a better chance of hitting it. Rather than looking at it once, writing it down, and then not looking at it maybe for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. I guarantee you what we put focus on begins to multiply, begins to expand. And that's why this is so important to really commit to what is my goal and why is it important to me. Now, with this, with our goal setting here, what we do is we take our lofty goal, right? And we're just gonna use $100,000 for example, $100,000. And we know in Q1, we need to make 20 grand. So let's just assume for conversation's sake, we hit $20,000 in our first quarter. Now Q2 is starting here in a couple of days, we need to make $30,000. So what we need to look at is what are 5 critical tasks that we can do every single week that are going to push our business forward. So we need 5 things. 5 things we're focused on. The people in this room that do this already know exactly what we're talking about. We're going to share some results here. But what are 5 things we need to do every single week that are done consistently every single week will push my business forward to help me hit and achieve my income? So now looking at this criteria, the 5 things we need to focus on, first of all, we need to make sure they're specific and measurable. So it can't just be like, well, occasionally I'll do this or that. It needs to be a specific thing, action item, task, whatever you want to call it, that we're going to do every single week. It needs to be specific and measurable. I need to state them positively, not just like, oh, when I feel like it. I am committed to doing this every single week. We need to ensure they're a realistic stretch. What does that mean to people?
You push yourself, you want to give it a push, but you don't want to make it ridiculous.
Exactly.
You don't want to crumple under it.
Yeah.
You know.
We don't want to make it so pie in the
Pie in the
sky
sky,
that it's not going to happen. But we also don't want to make it super easy, where it's just, hey, a little bit of effort, it's done. It needs to match our income goal. Like people often say, does your calendar match your income goal? Like my income goal is $100,000 and my calendar is blank every week. But my activities aren't matching what I need to do. I'm just waking up and hoping something happens. I'm hoping something falls into my lap, rather than really taking ownership of, here's my goal, here are the things I need to do this week to make sure I keep pushing my business forward. Because in real estate, it's easy to sit back and just say, hopefully somebody calls me. Like I referenced a good friend of mine that has a very good SOI business, got 6 kids, he's had a really good business for over the last few years, and he's panicked right now because no, his phone's not ringing. He's just always had a good sphere, which sphere is an important pillar, but he hasn't really done much else to strengthen his business over the years. And now all of a sudden his phone's slow. It's like, my phone hasn't ringing in 4 weeks. I don't know what to do. That's not a good place to be in, especially when you have 6 kids at home, right? Like being panicked about money is not a good place. So having the criteria in place to make sure we're doing what we need to do. Assign accountability. Who am I accountable to make sure I'm hitting my goals? And then be time bound, meaning I have to have a time on what I'm doing. Time blocking is extremely important. So we're going to talk about our 5 metrics, 5 action items done and it's the same action items every single week that we need to focus on. It's not just like this week I'm doing this week, next week I'm doing this. These are the 5 what we call action items, critical tasks that I'm going to focus on every week. And we need to focus on examples of leading metrics and what we call lagging metrics. So leading metrics would be things that are leading me to my result. So leading metrics in my 12-week year would be things like time spent on lead generation. How much time am I committed to spending on lead generation every week for the next 12 weeks? Now, keep in mind, lead generation can mean a lot of different things. It can mean picking up the phone and making phone calls. It can mean calling the internet. It can mean circle prospecting. It can mean cold calling. It can mean door knocking. Open houses can be considered lead generation. Going out to networking events could be considered lead generation. So figuring out what am I committed to on lead generation. Another leading metric could be the number of contacts. How many people am I committed to talking to every single week for the next 12 weeks? So 10, 50, 100, whatever the number might be. Right? Script practice could be an example of a leading metric. I know if I'm practicing my scripts and getting good at knowing what to say, whether it's on the phone, whether it's at an open house, whether it's on a buyer consultation, a listing presentation, if I'm getting good at that, chances are my conversions are going to go up. I'm going to convert more business. Like everybody in this room's probably heard me talk about before, I would go on 10 listing appointments and I would get 0. Scripts were terrible. Thought report. All right, when I started getting good at scripting, I would go on 10, I'd get 5. Then I go on 10, I'd get 8. So I go on 10 and I'd get 10. Or 10, I got 9 out of 10 usually. 90%. But I would convert a lot. I'd convert a lot more than when I was sitting there and like trying to be the nice guy, try to be friendly. I had a plan in place and I knew what to say and I knew how to overcome objections. My listing percentage for listings taken went significantly higher than it was previously. Tracking appointments gone on, number of open houses maybe didn't commit to, hours of door knocking, social media posts, follow-up completion. That's a big one as well. For people in here that have access to KV Core, knowing your follow-up completion is very important because 70% of our business will come from a follow-up phone call. So when we make that first phone call, keep this in mind. If we're doing a lot of cold calling, 2% of sales are made on the first call. So if I make 100 contacts today and they're all extremely cold leads, I can expect to maybe get 1 to 2 appointments out of that, which isn't bad if I'm committed to talking to hundreds of people today. And I'm looking more importantly, how many am I adding to my pipeline that I can follow up with? Because 70% of my business will come from follow-up. So follow-up is super important. Any other things here we can think of on leading metrics? And there's a lot. Farming could be one, mailers, like all kinds of stuff like that. Anybody else doing something right now that's working really well? The lead generation perspective, maybe it's not on here. Like I know you're dialed in with your neighborhood, right? So that's a big one, having a farm area and community networking, all of that, very important. Lag metrics. So what would lagging metrics be? Lagging metrics would be things like number of signed listing agreements. This could be something important to track as one of my 5 metrics. Number of signed buyer agency agreements, properties under contract. Those would all be what we call lagging metrics because they're the results of the activities we've done. So the first group is all the activities we've done. This is the result that we're getting. So looking at this now, how we track this is going to be, this is an example of Joe's score. So this is a live snapshot of Joe's score for the first 12 weeks of this year. So we just ended. So this is the first quarter. So let's look at a couple of things. One, Joe's metrics right now, for the most part, are primarily what we would call lagging metrics to some extent. So he's got appointments set. His goal is 1 for the week. Number of signed clients, 1 for the week. Properties under contract, 1 for the week. Social post, 4 for the week. And follow-up completion, 100%. So those are the metrics he established to commit to every week for the first 12 weeks of the year. So you can see in the last week of the year, Joe set 3 appointments. This was last week. He set 3 appointments. He signed 1 client. He did not put a property under contract, but he did 5 social posts, and he had a follow-up completion of 100%, which gave him a score of 125% for the week. We would consider that good. We consider anything over about 85% to be very good. And if you hit 85% or north of that, chances are you will hit your income goal, come very close to it, or exceed it. Now, what happened here as well is that for Joe's 12-week metrics, so as you can see, for the first 12 weeks of the year, his goal was to set 12 appointments. He set 17 appointments in the first 12 weeks of the year. That's a mixture of buyer and seller appointments. His goal was to sign 11 clients. He signed 8. Right, now keep in mind, some of the people he's meeting with maybe weren't necessarily ready yet. So that number could go up in Q2 with signing more people. His goal was to put 11 properties under contract. He put 9 properties under contract in the first 12 weeks. And then his goal was 44 social posts. He did 58 social posts for a total for his 12-week year. He exceeded the 100% with 107.01%. Pretty cool. All right, so he did very well. And here's the other cool thing, his income. So in 12 weeks, he closed $16,281 in income, and he pended $7,200, just shy of his goal of $24,000. He was at like $23,000. Yeah, that's up. So this, by doing this, gave Joe a plan for what he needs to focus on every single week. Now, Joe is in a very good habit of doing lead generation, doing a lot of the leading metrics. So if you're newer to this, your numbers might look different. They might look significantly different as far as your activities and what we want to do. Because these are all things that are producing results. Like, so essentially he's saying, I'm going to do my lead generation. I just know that's what I do. I've been doing it for a couple of years now, like a few years. So I just need to set goals on appointment set, sign clients, properties under contract. Other people might have time and place for lead generation. And they might have time and place for open houses, number of open houses, but more of those leading metrics that we shared. But any questions around this? Does this make sense? For people that don't do this maybe every day? Okay, so was neat about this too is even newer agents, every single person that did this made money in the first quarter. They closed houses in the first quarter. So think about the average real estate agent sells how many homes a year? Three. Average real estate agent sells 3 homes a year. That means with the 1.4 million realtors in the United States, there are probably half don't sell anything. It's about 700,000 realtors that sell nothing. Right? Think about that. Like you look at in the office, you look at our MLS here, there are 14, 12, 13,000 realtors, thousands that won't sell anything. But by putting focus on this and looking and knowing my metrics every single week, I'm putting focus and attention on what I need to achieve and what I need to do every week to keep pushing my business forward. So, a couple of things here. Does anybody want to do this? Yeah? No, do yours? No, you want to like write yours out? Did you do it yesterday? Yeah. Okay. Anybody that hasn't done this want to do this? You want to do it? Yeah. Let's see. All right, Dan, let's do it. All right, so here's what we want to do. So, Diana, what is your income goal?
To make some money.
Okay, make some money.
That's not calculable and measurable.
I'm like, just. I don't want to say like something too low where where it doesn't look like I care, but I don't want to say too much where it's just not feasible.
Well,
So
I think
I don't
the important thing is though, it has to be important to you. So I wouldn't worry about anybody else's opinion of it. I wouldn't worry about it's what do you need or what do you need to make or what is your goal, right? Because your goal is your goal. Your goal is going to be completely different than anybody. Everybody in this room has a different goal. And it's really tied to why is this goal important to me? Because when you think about it, money is just a tool to be able to help us in a lot of ways increase our life and make our life better. Make our life better for people around us. Now, it's not like people say it doesn't buy happiness, it doesn't money. All money does is take stress out of our life. If you think about it, majority of problems we have in life revolve around financial stress.
Money is another tool,
It's another tool. Exactly. We live on an economic
an
planet.
important one.
It's very important. Because without money, what can we do? Can't do a whole lot.
You don't have any options.
There's 0 options.
It's scary.
Yes, 0 options. Right. So I wouldn't be worried about. Just think about it from your perspective right now. What's important? How much do you need to make? Why is it important?
Well, I would like to say then set something that I think is feasible, maybe, and do, I don't know, 40, 50?
Okay, so which one, 40 or 50?
50, I guess.
Okay. So in order to hit 50,000, we're going to, do you know your average sale price roughly?
No, no idea.
We'll just use the median and say 250,000. So what we're looking at here is essentially if your goal was $50,000 for the year,
Yes.
right? We need, and let's just say it's mixed, 50% buyers, 50% sellers. So you're gonna work with both buyers and sellers, 50-50. We're just gonna leave 2.7 across the board because we know like a lot of agents are paying out less now. So let's say 2.7 average sale price. You would need to sell in order to hit your 50. Now this is gross income. So this is not factoring out expenses or anything like that. That's important to keep in mind. Like when I was in production back when they starting in, I had an admin, I had office space, I had all this stuff. So I had to factor, if my goal was $100,000, I might really have needed to make $160,000 to hit my 100 because I had 60K in expenses. All right, so keep that in mind. But let's just say for conversation's sake, your goal is to make $50,000 gross commission income. In order to achieve that, if you had a 250,000 average sale price, you would need to close 4 seller units, and 4 buyer units. So 8 homes to hit 50 grand. Assuming your average sale price is 250,000. Now that will vary based on if it goes up or down, right? But in order to do that, we're also factoring in that 80% of the homes that you list and get people to sign buyer agency agreements with will close. Because conversion to sold, have you ever, when we start working with a client, have you close every one of them? Has anybody ever lost a client?
Oh, sure.
Everybody has, right? So not every client we get is going to work out. And we know that because things happen. People lose jobs, people decide not to move. There's a variety of different reasons. So what we're looking at here, Diana, now is that we need to close 8 units. In order to close 8 units, you need to go sign this year 10 buyers or sellers. So you need to go list 10 properties or get 10 people to agree to buyer consult sign with you. 10, and in order to do that, you need to essentially go on 7 buyer appointments and 7 seller appointments. So if you go on 14 appointments this year, and 70% of them agree to work with you, and then of the 70% that agree to work with you, 80% sell, you're going to hit your goal. So really your goal becomes listing appointments per month. You need to go on 2 appointments per month. That make sense? We'll send this to you so you have it. But we need to go on 2 appointments per month in order to hit your goal of $50,000. So for one, does that seem doable?
So 2 appointments, you mean of either?
One of each.
One of each,
Okay.
or either, or just 2 listings or just 2 buyers. So you just need to be on 2 appointments, doesn't matter if it's buyers or sellers, you need to be on 2 appointments every month. Does that seem doable? Yeah, does it seem a lot more doable now than maybe looking at the big number here, this big target?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So now that we know that, in order to hit this 50, what we need to focus on so far too is we need to look at now, what are our 5 action items to help you get there? So if your goal is 51, why is 50,000 important to you?
It's just income. I want some income.
What do you do with that?
Put it away.
Put it away? Is that a compelling enough reason? I'm going to pressure you a little bit. Is that a compelling enough reason to go achieve this?
Well, yeah, I mean, and there's some things that we need that we haven't been able to get because our other business was so lacking last year.
Okay. So it's going to solve some problems there from that aspect, right? Because we have to figure out, is there a big enough why for it? Now, all right, so if we know that, now we need to figure out what are 5 things that we can focus on every week to go make that happen. Because in Q2, in order to hit 50,000, and let's just say, I'm just making this up, but if we didn't sell any houses in Q1, well, now we need to essentially take our 20% plus our 30%. So 20% of 50 for Q1 is $10,000, right? And 30% is 15. So we need to go focus on how do we go make $25,000. Or we can split this out over the next 4 quarters. And let's just say, instead of focusing on that, we need to go focus on 18 grand. So if we focus now on $18,000 rather than 50, but we need to go make that in the next 3 months. Does that make sense? So what are 5 things we can focus on every week that you will commit to help you go hit $18,000?
Maybe calling my sphere.
Calling your sphere, okay, that's good. So how many contacts, how many calls to your sphere per week can you commit to for the next 12 weeks?
Per week?
Yeah. So this is going to be, these action items are what we're going to do every single week for the next 12 weeks.
So are you talking about calling every single person in the sphere every week?
What we're talking about, let's just say you had, I don't know, say you had 200 people in your sphere. Maybe we need to commit to breaking that down to 12 by 12 and X amount of contacts per week to my sphere.
Okay. So
like if you had 120 people in your contacts, you'd be calling 10 people a week.
okay,
Can you commit to that?
yeah.
Okay. So 10 SOI contacts. And then 4 more.
Going in my neighborhood,
Okay, so like door knocking?
yeah, or canvassing, whatever you call it, yeah.
Okay. How many, like an hour, how much do you want to commit to that? Each week?
Yeah, maybe an hour, maybe 2. Well, I'll put an hour.
All right. All right. 3 more. Just help her out. What are other
Do
things?
you
that
do
you guys
open
are doing?
houses?
Social media, script
Cold call.
practice.
Oh, yeah, social media, scripts. I really, I'm not really ready for that, but
Is anybody ready to script?
No.
Unless you're ready to script.
Is everybody?
Tell your story too about scripting, will you? When you see Joe do it back in the day.
Well, yeah, when I would go to the sessions and you would have, and you and Joe would role play, script and role play, and I was just so impressed the way it just came right out of Joe. As soon as he'd say something to him, he had the right answer, and it was so impressive, and that's what really drew me to your team.
And so, and fast forward to today, Mary's a person that can stand up here and the scripts just roll off her tongue.
Well, it's amazing, you know, when you practice it, and then it's like, you're talking to somebody and all of a sudden it's like, where'd that come from? You know, I mean, yeah, back mind and it's ready for the objections and the questions and gives you a lot of confidence.
It does, yeah. And I think what's important is none of us were comfortable doing it when we first started. We were all equally bad at it, every one of us. Like no one was just naturally gifted to be able to just pick up and converse. It was just really time on task over time and practicing consistently. And that's led us to a lot of the people on our team here in the room can just roll scripts off their tongue. That a year ago they couldn't do, 2 years ago they couldn't do, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, could not do. And now it's just a natural part of the conversation, but none of us were ready. You know, it's just a matter of, we know we need to do this in order to become the best real estate agent possible. So how do I go become the best real estate agent possible? It's by practicing, being really good at knowing what to say and when to say it. And then by doing that, I can be actively listening, because that's the important thing too, is that we have to be a good listener. And so if I'm constantly thinking about what am I going to say next, and I'm in a conversation with the client, I'm not listening to what they're saying. I'm just sitting there thinking about what am I going to say next, what am I going to say next, what am I going to say next. Or so I have these things so internalized and so just know them verbatim, they can say whatever. I can just actively listen, because no matter what they say, I'm going to know how to respond.
And you sound natural, you know, I always
Yeah.
thought script would make you sound like you're reading something, but the
Yeah.
more you practice, then it becomes natural to you. You don't sound like you're doing a script, you just sound like you're having a conversation.
Exactly.
It really polishes you, it makes you a professional. The corporate background wasn't real estate at all, and we did scripting, and it was hard to get into that, but then it's the same concept, no matter what industry you're in. When you're in sales or customer service, it's important to know what a good answer is, you know, and it does give you confidence. When you're first learning, it's very awkward, but when you get in there, in that moment, you're a professional, you talk, and because you're practicing these things and nobody else is. I miss that. That's why I'm here today, because I know you guys do that a lot, and I don't have that in my, you know, toolbox as much as I wish I did have as a realtor. And there are things I need help with, and I'm doing really good. I just winged it up till now, but I need to polish. I feel like I'm not polished, and I think that if you would like to script, I will script with you. We can figure this out, because it makes you better.
It does. And it is uncomfortable. Like I was the guy that I would go to a training event, we'd have to stand up and script, and I would take a phone call. I just didn't want to do it. I was so uncomfortable. Right. And then it's a matter of there's finally it's like I have no other option. It's like I need to make money as a real estate agent. And in order to do that, I need to get really good at this and be the best at my profession that I can possibly be. And the only way to do that is to practice and learn and keep doing it. And then all of a sudden, like I could stand up in front of a couple hundred people and just recite scripts. It didn't matter anymore. And so, but it's never going to be comfortable, but that's also how we grow. We have to stretch ourselves and get out of our comfort zone. And what's cool too is like when you script practice, nobody cares if you mess up, because everybody you're practicing with, or everyone that you're with, they're in the same spot you're in right now. We're all there. We all had to start somewhere. We messed up. We just, you know, it doesn't matter. Nobody cares. Everyone's worried about themselves too. No one's really like, oh my gosh, can you believe she messed up script number 5? So it's just, once you get that in, it becomes fun. So if you want to commit to some scripting, how much time would you want to commit to scripting every week?
Maybe,
It doesn't have to be all at once.
well, like if I'm gonna include, you know, being in the office, you know, 3 days and listening and maybe doing practicing, so I don't know, 3 times a week. What was the question?
So how much time do you want to
Oh,
commit to?
total?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What's a good time you guys think to script practice?
Well, 30 minutes is usually what you do per time, and if you did it maybe 2 or 3 times a week or 2 times a week. Once, I mean, it's just up to, you know.
Hour a week?
Okay.
Twice, do 30 minutes.
Hour a week? All right. So 1 hour of scripting. All right, 2 more.
So when you're saying social media, are you just talking about making?
Post, yeah,
Real
post
estate.
stories, reel, anything, yeah.
Direct messages.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, how many posts do you want to commit to per week?
Or direct messages, or it could be even comments on other
Okay.
things.
One,
One social media
Real-
post per week?
real estate wise?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't, yeah.
so like some things, some of the guys, people in here do, is they do a lot of reels and stuff, they kind of make them fun, they do different things, like it's still tied into real estate, so think about even when you're showing property. People like to look at like very expensive, nice homes, and they also like to comment and like on stuff that's just super off the wall. Like Brendan's yesterday. Right, so like Brendan did a post yesterday, he's out showing houses, and there was like the people would mark the kids and their height, and he's like, can we get an update on Bob? Because Bob is like, where you going? So it's like real estate tips, or like, you know, we just listed a house, it can be a mixture of all of that, but also making it fun where people want to engage with it too, where they're thinking about, you know, when you're out showing houses, you think like, see something off the wall, something different, take a picture, take a video, and be thinking that way. Like I used to show a lot of foreclosure houses, so I'd post stuff like just some crazy stuff in foreclosure
A
homes.
kitchen from 1947,
Yes,
and still,
yeah.
I came across that once in, I don't know, somewhere in West County. I mean, it was like the oven slid out of the burners or, I mean, I've never,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm old and I've never seen anything like that. It was bizarre.
yeah, stuff like
And
that.
it made its
sells.
rounds and everybody was like, oh my God.
Exactly.
Okay, so then maybe three.
3 social media posts? Okay, and then one more. You have suggestions?
Do you do anything with
That's not only appointments, you said.
That would be one I would recommend too. Is that if we need to set an appointment a month, we should put focus on a metric where we're doing an appointment. So even if it's like one appointment per week, because think about that, if you could get in the habit of setting one appointment per week, you essentially are going to double your income goal, if not triple it, or. So if we start putting focus on that, I need to get on an appointment a week. Like I often tell people here is that like my 3 things back in the day. Every day I got in the office, every day I woke up, my number one goal was to sell a home. Every single day, that was my goal, was to sell a house. So every day I wanted to sell a house. I need to sell a house, I need to sell a house, I need to sell a house. I was obsessed with selling houses. The new houses would lead to money, which would lead to not, pay off debt, get my student loans paid off, my credit card debt. Oh, we're gonna have to talk to Teresa Bustos, the debt collector. Like all of those things would lead to that. So that was my focus, was every single day I need to sell a house. My second priority was if I had no one to sell a house to, I needed to set an appointment. So who can I get in front of today that I can sell a house to? And if I didn't do either of those 2 things today, my next best objective would be who did I add to my database that will be a future potential business for me. So who did I add in? Who did I talk to that will be future business? So those are my 3 objectives. Every single sell a house, set an appointment, or add people to my database that will be future clients. So if we put focus in setting an appointment every single week, you want to commit to that?
Why are you scared?
Cause I don't know how to do that.
So you can sit with your lender and have breakfast with them maybe, or if your HWA lady, your home warranty lady, and kind of, exchange business, she gives you referrals. You give her business.
Sometimes you walk through the grocery store, you say hi to people, and you overhear somebody talking, you say, I'm a realtor, and you give them a card. Just gotta let everybody know what you do, and that you can help them.
All right.
Oh.
All right. So there we go. So for the next 12 weeks, that's our focus. So think about this. If you get in the habit of having 10 contacts with your SOI every week, I promise you appointments will come from it. Because you're going to start taking action, you're going to start talking to people. Give an example too. Kathy, a lady that switched over to her brokerage, texted me this morning and she mentioned, she's texted me, she's like, hey, I just want to say thank you. She said, she's texted me like 7:30. I just want to say thank you. She said, I have had people in my database since last January that have been ghosting me. Or excuse me, it was this January. So people in our database from January that have been ghosting me. And she goes, because you said to never stop calling until they say, stop calling me, that's the only time you should put follow up with people is if they say, quit calling me. She's like, I continue to call them. They picked up the phone yesterday and I'm gonna sell their house. They're gonna buy a house and there's one other piece of business going on. So she's like, just thank you. She's like, because in the past I would have just quit. Would have quit calling them, assuming they didn't want to work with me. She said they got to the point they're fed up with their neighbor. They want to move. So they came to a new construction house. They go, we're gonna buy one of that's it. They're gonna buy one of her new construction homes that she has listed, and she's gonna get to list their house as well. And so she get the double side of the new construction. She represents the builder, she can represent them. So 3 things came from that by continuing to follow up and not stopping. So I think that's super important too, is that we just know that we continue to follow up until they say stop calling. Because so many people just assume they can call me back in 2 months, they're not interested. They can call me back in 3 months, they're not interested. We continue to call. So my point in that is by having conversations and starting to make contact with people, we're beginning to be kind of urgent and we're creating opportunity for ourselves rather than just waiting and hoping. Because if we sit back and wait and hope people are going to come to us, it just doesn't happen. And it doesn't happen fast enough and it doesn't happen consistent. So it's super important that we focus on that. So if we're making 10 conversations a week, we're going out and door knocking, and talking to our area, our subdivision every week. We're practicing scripts every week. We're doing social media posts, and we set 1 appointment a week. Does that feel like something you can commit to?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll work with it for sure.
Perfect, good. So what we do now is, let me go back to this real quick. So now that you have your 5 metrics, couple of things. We have a plan in place. So now that we have a plan in place, one, it reduces mistakes, it saves time. The biggest one is it provides focus. So now that we have focus, we know these 5 things need to get done every week, and everything else is somewhat irrelevant until that's complete. So I need to focus on this every week. Yeah. Usually it makes it to the class. Yeah. Do that gorilla stuff. But it's gonna give us focus too on what do we need to, so now we know what to do. Because I feel like in real estate too, it's easy to not know what to do. Everybody agree with that? We get bombarded by people trying to sell us leads and sell us all these different systems and sell us services and all this stuff. It's easy to get caught up in really mistaking movement for achievement. Like I talked about myself, going and creating a marketing flyer. It takes all day. I felt like I did something. I didn't do anything. Like I wasn't pushing my business forward. So we need to focus on what is going to make us money. What's going to get us into production. So by focusing on these 5 things every week for the next 12 weeks, we're going to start pushing your business forward. Now, here's the thing. Coming out of a business planning deal where we have a plan in place, we're going to go through phases. And this is what I believe in real estate too, is uninformed optimism. This is the person that stands up and says, I'm going to sell 1,000 houses and everybody cheers. All right. That's what we call uninformed optimism. They're optimistic that they're going to hit their goal. Well, what happens is, as we set, as you mentioned, Karen, life starts to happen. It starts to get tough. It starts to get challenging. Well, now we move into uninformed pessimism. So it's like, ooh, this is a little harder than I thought. You know, that whole group that was applauding me is no longer here cheering me on, kind of on my own here, trying to make this happen. This is a little bit tougher than I felt. And as we're moving down here, we're losing motivation. This is where the 80% of New Year's resolutions fail. Well, we get to this one here, what we call phase 3, the valley of despair, where most people quit. They say, you know what, my life is fine. It wasn't that bad. You know, I was making whatever I was making, it was okay. It wasn't great, you know, but it was fine. This is too hard. This is too hard. You know, my goal really wasn't as important maybe as I thought it was. So this is where most people quit. Now, the people that push through, they go to phase 4, which is informed optimism. Now they know how challenging it is. Now they know what they need to do to overcome that challenge, right? And now they know that if I keep pushing, this is starting to work for me. But most people stop here. And that's what I find in real estate too. A lot of people quit way too soon. They quit because it's not happening fast enough. Does it happen fast enough for anybody? No. No. Real estate, income is never going to happen fast enough unless you win the lottery. If you win the lottery and you're not prepared to win that amount of money, you're going to blow through and be back in the spot anyway. So thinking about this informed optimism, and if I get to phase 5 with success and fulfillment. Most people will not get to 4 and 5 because they're going to stop at 3. They're going to get stopped. So people that have gone through this 12-week year, who felt like quitting in the first 12 weeks? Who still feels like quitting? I'm a firm believer, if you don't feel like quitting pretty regularly, you're probably not gonna do it. Right? Like I truly believe in that. Like I always feel like quitting, always. Because my goals are big and my goals continue to get bigger and they continue to get bigger. So I want to do more, create more, help more. But everybody in here, who's thought about quitting? Yeah. So it's okay to think about quitting. It's not okay.
Just quit.
Actually.
Absolutely. And who's literally like, people that went through this, who's felt this in a lot of ways?
Yeah.
They only-
I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're newer, right, in a different company, just switched over here. Yeah, and so it's kind of like nobody gets the real, so here's the thing, nobody gets their real estate license to be like, yeah, give me my real estate license and be on welfare. But that's like the average realtor makes about the poverty line. 3 homes a year is the average, that means there's tons making less than that. But nobody's like, yeah, I can't take my real estate license so I can be on welfare for my whole life. It's just like, we get into this because we have the potential to make more money than doctors, which is pretty cool. Like I always say, it's the only industry where you go to school for 6 days, put it on the credit card, pass the C- to make more money than a doctor. Pretty cool industry. Pretty sweet. But a lot of people won't get there because they stop here. Yeah.
So the question I'm gonna ask everybody in the room, we're all gonna hit the valley of despair. Who are you giving up on when you hit the valley of despair? Yourself, exactly. Keep that in mind. The only one you're giving up on, nobody else in this room, you're giving up on yourself because you're saying, I can't do this. It's too hard. It's too challenging. I'm just gonna give up. Don't give up on yourself, ever. Push through, and you'll achieve the objectives that Michael has there on that graph.
What's cool too is like, I'll see people that will still quit real estate and they go get another sales job.
Yeah.
It's like, you're gonna have the same problems. Like, it's gonna be the same
You
challenge.
can sell one thing, you can sell another
Exactly,
thing.
yeah. So rather than quitting and just jumping to another career, like you see people that have had like 37 jobs in 5 years, like people they're bouncing from one thing to the next. It's really because they're not committed. They're not committing, they're not buying into, if I continue to do this, it will work for me. It's worked for others. And if it's worked for others, it will work for me. And all I have to do is continue to stay consistent and keep pushing so I can get here, then ultimately here. And that's where we build that confidence. Like we talked about with Mary, like the confidence she has now, she probably didn't have a couple of years ago. Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's because you were kind of just, like you said, winging it in a way.
Yeah, but touching back on what you said earlier about surrounding yourself with people that believe that you can succeed. I mean, if I told my goal to, my kids, they go, oh, sure, mom, good for you, type thing. But here, I can tell them my goal and they're like, okay, good for you, you're gonna reach it.
Yeah.
So that makes a big difference too. And when you talked about, who thinks of quitting, I mean, there are times during the 12-week year when I feel like, I just don't feel like doing this today, but I don't ever feel like not doing the 12-week year. Because I know the accountability and I know the metrics and I know that it all works, so I need to just keep plugging through it.
Definitely, I agree with that, yeah. What's neat too is like you said, like once we start achieving our goals too, then people just kind of like, yeah, you will do that once you tell them. Because that's like, I used to, like my ex-girlfriend back in the day, I would tell her, I'm gonna do all this stuff. She's like, yeah, right. She shouldn't have believed me, so I wouldn't have believed me either, and so I can't fault her for not getting angry.
Go right in there with reality.
Yeah, she doesn't believe in me. She said, "Gosh, I'm giving anything." Why does she, right? So, but the more we take action, now you tell people goals are like, oh, yeah, I like that. And so that's one of those things where it not just becomes given there. We built confidence, we built the track record, we built the success. Greater than any money too, is just like the person we become along the way. So think about that. The greatest value is who we become along the way. The courage we develop, the skills we develop, the confidence we develop, all of that is almost more important than the money.
It's the journey.
It is.
It's
The money is just a byproduct. It absolutely is. And so thinking through this, looking at it, where are we at? Because everybody in this room might be at different levels in this. But knowing that we all have the potential to get to the top, if we commit to our goals and we continue to push forward and we continue to get better. So this is the big part of this, is the weekly accountability. So it's one thing to have our goals, to know our income, to know our whys, know our reasons, to have our plan of action for what we're going to do. The weekly accountability is one of the most important pieces of this because It's peer accountability. So what we do here is every Monday, every meeting, and every individual reports out, like that scorecard, I showed you Joe's scorecard, everybody has one of those, and you see exactly how they did for the week. So let's just say on these metrics, I did 5 contacts, that's a 50%, right? I did 30 minutes, it's a 50%. I did my hour, that's 100%. But we're gonna take all of these, average them up and give that score. So let's just say I finished with an 80%. Okay, great. How did you feel about that? So we're gonna talk about the results for the week, as well as the results for the week from year to date for the 12-week year. And then we're gonna be looking at what our weekly score was, what our intentions are, what do we intend to do in the upcoming week that will continue to put us closer to our goal, or let's say we had a really bad week. What are we gonna do this week to get back on track? Because people doing the 12-week year, has anybody had a bad week?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, we all have. It happens. What are we gonna do now to rebound and get back on track? Because like we mentioned, having a bad week is almost like having a bad month. So we can't have 2 bad weeks, because that's for 3 bad weeks, that's just gonna eat into our year and make it significantly harder to hit our goals. So knowing that, and then talking about successful techniques. So as a group discussing what we can do to help each other, keep pushing forward, get better, just to stay motivated, maybe for a down week. Like, we just had an awesome week, an awesome day. Set 2 appointments, signed 2 new buyers, put 2 houses under contract. By Friday, it's all gone, right? It happens, right? Deals died, sellers canceled the contract, like stuff like that happens. So it's increasingly, it's important to continue to stay motivated, to have people around you to stay motivated. And to know that, what I like about the 12-week year too, is you can't really get comfortable. You can't really get comfortable, even like Mary had an explosive first quarter. And in order to hit her yearly goal, she needs to have a second
Do it all over again.
quarter. Yeah, so it doesn't allow us that time, because that's what happens in real estate. It's like, wow, I just made 25 grand this month. It's easy to start to kind of pull the reins back and be like, hey, it's okay. I deserve to take some time off. I deserve now, not remembering though that we still have a lofty goal to achieve. So if we want to not just have a good month, we want to have a good year. So in order to have a good year, we need to keep showing up and keep doing these things. So at the end of the year, we hit our income goal or exceed.
Well, the fact that we meet every week too, and I don't wanna be the one that's considering, those, well, I got 25% this week,
Yeah.
you know? But I also like about, what the intentions for the coming week, because it makes you think about, why did I have a bad week and what can I do to bring it back up the following week?
Yeah, absolutely. And oftentimes when people have a bad week, it's just because they're so bogged down with the business. Because they're doing activity, they've got clients, they're trying to just figure out how to service all of that. That's where time blocking becomes extremely important with time blocking.
Well, that'd be a really cool reason not to get something done, though.
Yeah, it is. Well, and what happens there though is when we do that, let's just say we have 3 or 4 buyers and sellers, we have a lot of deals going on. We get so focused on servicing those clients, so we close 3 deals out, have a really good month, then we have to start over. Now we're starting over, whereas if we can keep committing to this and we keep filling our pipeline, now we're figuring out how to time block to where we can continue to commit to our activities and service our clients, provide high level of service. So that way when we close those 3 or 4, we have 3 or 4 more lined up ready to go as well. So that way it just keeps giving a consistent month. Every month now, how do I get 2, 3, 4 closings every month so I can hit or exceed? Yeah.
So you're saying this weekly accountability is your top priority,
Yes.
and then everything else, going out and engaging with clients, working deals, that all becomes secondary
Yes.
as part of your
Yeah.
real estate schedule.
Yeah.
That fuels
Yeah.
first.
This fuels it exactly. So I put it as, these are my most important activities. Everything else is secondary, including my clients. I put lead generation and treat it like $1 million listing. So back in the day when I lead generated every single morning, it was like $1 million listing appointment. I would do whatever I had to do to not mess up that time. Client calls, hey, we want to look at houses tomorrow at 8. Look, I've got an appointment at 8, and we do 10. We do 12. I can do any other time in the day. And if they said, no, I absolutely can only do 8 o'clock, well, then I would make an exception. And I'd figure out where to time block. But I would always lead with, I have an appointment tomorrow at 8 or 9 or 10, wherever my time block was, 8 to 10 usually. Can we do 10:30? We do 11. So I would try to keep my showings outside of my lead generation window so I can keep my business pushing forward. It typically would happen about 95% of the time. Clients like, yeah, 10:30 is great. Let's do that. I never lost business because I would still accommodate. If they absolutely could only do that tiny window, then I would make an exception and do it and then replace my lead generation. But what tends to happen is we just bounce around, yeah, I'll do it tomorrow, great. Yeah, I can do it Friday, I can do this, like, and then our business just gets to the point where we're pushing all of our lead generation to the back burner. Maybe we're like, oh, we'll just double up on Friday or triple, do a bunch on Friday. But then like friend calls, hey, it's in the lake, now we just missed a whole week of lead generation. So it's super important to treat these activities as a priority. Same thing too, like if a client calls you and they want to talk about their building inspection, can that conversation wait an hour? It absolutely can. So like I would just text them, hey, I'm on an appointment, can I call you back in 45 minutes? Can I call you back in an hour? Yeah, no problem. Clients just want to know that we're being, like, we're still keeping them in the loop, right? But then we don't need to respond immediately to everything. Like if a house has termites, that's not an emergency. That we need to call, like, and it can wait 30 minutes. Right? So that's very important to think on that too. How do we still provide really good customer service? And what is there? We keep in touch with our clients. I can send a text, I'm on an appointment, can I call you back in an hour? Sure, no problem. Not the end of the world. Or if you know you have things coming up, call your clients ahead of time. So like, if your client, you've been talking to them in a couple of days, like they're probably gonna call you in the morning, just call them tonight, get that stuff out of the way. That way you can jump on the phones, lead generate in the morning and protect your time. So very
If you keep
important.
them in the loop also, that just lets them know that you're busy. That you're, I've got an appointment, but I will, as long as you just don't ghost somebody.
That's huge.
Usually everybody understands. It's like, oh, wow, well, I know you're so busy, whatever, but
Yeah.
I don't mind as long as you don't ghost them.
Right. And the most important thing is like, think of it like if your client never has to call you because you're doing such a good job of keeping them updated. You're over communicating with them constantly to where they never have to call you. You're constantly calling them and giving updates. That's a spot you want to be. Where like you never get client calls because you're always forward thinking about, I need to fill my client in on this. And that way you never have it where they're just calling you. It's more reactive. We're being proactive by keeping them up to date.
The other thing, the beauty is like texting has become, these people that I close with, it's a young couple. They bought a house with me, we're closing on the house of their own that we sold in a day, first contract, whatever. I think I probably only had to call them 3 times.
Yeah, it's all text.
It's, and they want to text, so that's the other thing, I mean, it's just, it's like, he works from home, he's on the phone all the time, it's like, I know, Kira doesn't really want me, so I text him, and I'm like, okay, you wanna, give me a call back, but I don't know, it's getting, I don't wanna say easy, because nothing's easy, but I mean, it was amazing how easy it was.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
Texting,
Well, and think about
much more efficient.
Yeah.
It's a great, as long as you're working with a culture, or an age group that it's good for. I mean, you don't want to, I've got another lady who's 82. Obviously we don't text.
Good phone call. Yeah. So some success to do, share with others. All right, stay in touch with your vision. This is a big one. So keeping in touch with why is this important to you? Why am I doing this? Like we call it your big why, your vision, your goal, whatever you want to call it. Why is it important to me? Why am I doing it? And then how do I live with intention? That's all I got. Thoughts?
That's awesome. This is intention. I like that.
Can you see though how by taking rather than just having a huge lofty, because that's the thing too, like I read a book one time way back in the day and I put together like a 19-page business plan. And I didn't do anything with it. I mean, like I wanted to do so much stuff, right? That I was just like, it's like, what's that called? Like paralysis by analysis, yeah. And I didn't do anything. I took 0 action. And I had this massive business plan. What I like about this is we're going to condense what we need into small goals. And we're only focusing on 5 things. 5 critical tasks I need to get done every single week to push me toward my goal. I don't need a 100-page business plan or a 10-page business plan. I have 5 things I need to do every week that if I do them and do them well, it will continue to push my business forward. And we meet for pure accountability as a group to track and see how we're doing. And what I'll tell you is this, we started doing this middle of the year last year. That's right, yeah. We had a bigger team at that point in time. And we had team members that weren't doing anything. And what I'll tell you is that the morale, it drags the morale down. We have people that are okay with getting a 20%. Like, that's not okay. Like they should do anything, right? And so like having a team now where it's people will really pour in and focus into this, it makes for better results because people are hitting their numbers. Like Mary said, you don't want to walk in with a 20%. Everybody else is at 80, 90, 100, 107, 112. Right? And then you don't want to be the person with 0 income or somebody else has $30,000 in income. It's like, if they're doing it, why can't I? do it? Right, and so it definitely helps to have a group of people that are committed to being able wanting to do this. So any thoughts or questions around this?
So on the flip side too, like we talked about, you know, when you had people that are not motivated and you come in and they got 20%, you think, well, I got 30%, so I'm doing better than he did. you know?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, the other point, just if like a week goal is too long for you, something that Joe does, who just left, is a power list for the day. So break that down through your 5 days and make it an easier target. If I call 2 SOI people today, that's a win, and go down your checklist and split it up that way too, so it's not overwhelming. Oh, I've got 2 hours of script practice and door knocking and then 3 social posts. It's already Wednesday. You know, plan out your week that way too. It's been beneficial.
And when I put appointments on my calendar, I color code them light green. Light greens are money making activities. They're not, they haven't closed yet, but that, so if I open up my calendar and I see a lot of light green, I'm good. I'm doing well, I'll keep going, you know, but if I don't really have much going on, I need to get doing something. And my closings are dark green because that's gonna bring me home, you know? And I think, you know, like, figure out something, those things need to get done, but those are the things that make you money. Set that appointment, no matter how, all you have to do is set appointments. They'll get you those appointments, so that's the key. But if you can find a different way to get appointments, set appointments, you know, and that's the key. Set one every week.
Yeah.
And you might not get an appointment each week. Some people can't meet that week or the next week. You might actually go on 2 appointments in 1 week, but if you set one each week, you know, some people are rescheduled and never scheduled again, but you're gonna land 2 a month, you're gonna hit your goal.
Absolutely.
And that's, the basics, it's been.
It is. Sometimes I know, like Karen, I know last year you didn't really participate, you sat in a couple of these, but we didn't really sit down and go through goals. So it's something we're gonna do on Thursday, if you guys want, is sit down and go through this and line out, just like we did here, line out action items and goals, so we can help you all stay accountable. Yeah. Mhm.
Is that Thursday morning?
Thursday morning, yeah, I think at 10:30. Yeah, we'll send out a link for that, because I know you've sat in on some of these.
Mhm.
Now we can sit down and really pick your metrics and help you start getting this going. So, any other thoughts?
Everyone's gonna leave with extremely high motivation, but high motivation will go away. That's when discipline has to kick in. It's pure discipline.
That's why we have that 12-week year. I mean, we keep the motivation going. I mean, it would be like we talked about before, how many times you go into some meeting and you come out all pumped and then 2 hours later you forgot what they said at the meeting.
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, it's like conferences you go to, you feel all good, and then.
The 12-week year is groundhog.
Yeah.
Groundhog day.
That's good.
For real estate.
That's real good.
Yeah.
That's very good. Good analogy.
Yeah.
That's all I got. Looks like I'm just here.